Earlier in this unit, you had some practice at packing up numbers in scientific notation and maybe even unpacking numbers from scientific notation. But another good thing about packing them up is I'll go ahead and write something in scientific notation. Times 10 to the, I'll go ahead and make it third. So if you pack a number up in scientific notation, this of course we call the coefficient. And from the coefficient, you can get, or you're supposed to get, the sig figs. So sig figs from coefficient. So if all three of these digits in the coefficient were, for instance, not zero, non-zero digits, then I would have 3 sig figs right there. So that's a good thing. An example of that is if we take that 32,000 again, 32,000 packed up into scientific notation. Let's go ahead and remind you how that works. 32,000 packed up in scientific notation. So the decimal's what? Implied right there. And we're going to move it over until we get a number that is larger than 1 but less than 10. And it's looking like I'm going to move my decimal there. I'm going to move it 4 places. So that's times 10 to the 4th, and that gives me a coefficient of 3.2. Okay, so that's where that came from. So I told you we get significant figures from number packed up in scientific notation from the coefficient. So that's why we say there's 2 significant figures. Well, what if you go ahead and in that coefficient, we go ahead and put a trailing 0 after the decimal. So in our trailing 0 after the decimal now, okay, so now I count sig figs there, and I have 1, 2, 3 sig figs. Now, is this the same number? Yep. If I were to unpack this, what would I do? I'd move this decimal place over 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing. It unpacks to 32,000, and so on. So if I wanted to show 4 significant figures, I could put another trailing 0 after the decimal. So we have 4 significant figures there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And last but not least, this one's kind of a strange one, I think. Okay, if you wanted to show 5 significant figures, I think you could just put a decimal at the end of 32,000. But otherwise, you can show 5 significant figures if you go ahead and in the coefficient put those trailing zeros after the decimal. There's going to be times, and you're going to say, oh, Mrs. Snipes said this would happen, when you want to show a certain number of significant figures, and the best way to do is to show it using scientific notation. So now we bumped up against an assignment slide. There you go.